Hey everyone, welcome back to the MindShift Podcast. Today, my guest is Dr. Herbert Harris. He is a retired attorney turned successful author, speaker, mentor, and trainer in the world of personal development and entrepreneurship. Dr. Harris has devoted his life to transforming the lives of others and helping them achieve their full potential. He has authored several best-selling books, including Power Thoughts for Your Success, The 12 Universal Laws of Success, and How to Make Money in Music. Today, we are excited to have Dr. Harris with us, who is also the host of the Success Talk podcast, where he interviews individuals who have overcome tremendous obstacles, share their stories, experiences, and life lessons with his audience there. I happen to be a guest on his show. Dr. Herbert Harris, welcome to the MindShift Podcast.
Darrell, thank you so much, man. And I appreciate the invitation. And I love the name, the MindShift, because that's really what it's all about.
I think you and I are kindred souls, my brother. Listen, I would love for the audience to be blessed right out of the gate with your centering exercise. And to give the audience some context, I asked Dr. Herbert Harris to share this with you guys, because if you follow him on social, and we're going to make sure you know exactly where to find him, I think it's one of the most magnificent ways to begin a discussion. I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Harris.
Thank you so much, Darrell. You know, people, it's so important to be centered and be attentive to the message that you're receiving. And so this day, just sit straight up in your seats for a moment. Close your outer eyes. Open your inner eyes. And take a deep breath. Hold it. Let it out slowly. Take a deep breath. Hold it. Let it out slowly. I am at peace with myself. Let us affirm that together. I am at peace with myself. And just let that peace sink in for a moment. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. And in that peaceful state, our minds are open, receptive, and ready to learn. Let us affirm that together. My mind is open, receptive, and ready to learn. Once more. My mind is open, receptive, and ready to learn. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. And so it is.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, sir. I so much appreciate you taking time to do that and blessing our audience with that. I am a student, a graduate and learning and ongoing student of the practice of meditation and mindfulness. And I remember when I first heard it on one of your Facebook Lives, I was like, it's such a wonderful beginning to an engagement. And because you host a space in your world for people to come in and grow and learn and collaborate. And I just think it was, I was like, wow, it's a profound thing to start with. Let me ask you right out of the gate, how did you come about the idea to open with this moment of centeredness?
Well, you know, Darrell, I'm very obedient to the moment. And, you know, when we talk about mindfulness and attentiveness, when I started classes, I used to do a lot of live seminars and before webinars, live seminars in hotels. And one of the things that we found that when people came in from wherever they were in the world, we had to bring them to a space of peace so they could connect with this level. And so it was always in that vibration. I started it there, and it's interesting. Everybody doesn't always appreciate it. When I travel and speak before big crowds, and I do trainings especially, before training, I always get everybody centered. And I was in, I think, Mississippi, and a fellow said, Doc, uh, can you not do that? I mean, that just sounds so churchy. I said, well, no, you need to get somebody else to train, because we need to put people in a space where they're receptive. We want them to disconnect from all the other stuff to be present. And so it just became a natural part of that, from the carryover from bringing people who were live there, and it translates into cyberspace, because once again, it's about being present and mindful.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of you that might be listening while driving, while you certainly couldn't close your eyes and take all of that in, I think the spirit of it, because I'm in my car a lot when I listen to podcasts, but in a way, I love the idea of saying, hey, let's take a pause. Let's set aside what we were doing and let's come together for this idea. And I think it's fantastic. And certainly, as with anything, there's always going to be someone or a group of folks that are like, hey, just get on with it. Right. But I appreciate you honoring that. Dr. Harris, please bless our audience and share a little bit about your backstory. You were an attorney, and I remember the first time when you and I connected. In fact, those that may be watching this on YouTube or anywhere else where we have posted the video, they will notice over your right shoulder, facing the camera, a picture of you and the late, great Johnny Cochran. Please bring our audience up to speed with the Dr. Harris that is Dr. Harris.
Well, when I practiced law, I made a decision very early that I preferred trial work. Like many of my clients were other attorneys who didn't like to try cases. And, trying cases like being an athlete. If you don't stay in shape and do it regularly, you don't really get good at it. And trying cases, it's about timing. It's really telling your story, telling your client's story in a way that the jury or the judge believes it and can identify with it. In that particular picture, I was with Johnny. We were in Washington, D.C., and it was a conference on reparations. The law firm, it was a major law firm in Washington that had handled the reparations as a result of the Holocaust. And so if you notice, we both have on blue suits. So I walked in, I had flown up, I walked in, and everybody was, good morning, good morning. I'm like, wow, go right in to the conference. Okay, I go right into the conference room and sit down. So then about 10 minutes later, in comes security and everybody, and Johnny walked in, and I guess he got the outside, and he said, well, how'd you get outside? And he said, what do you mean I'm not? He said, well, who's that down in the office?
That's right.
So he came down, and we laughed for days, And it was one of those kind of inside stories, and he'd say, like, well, you know what they say. Nobody else got it.
Yeah, but the funny thing is for those that are listening just to the audio, if you look over his shoulder when you go check out the video on YouTube or on our blog, at a distance, you don't know who's who.
Yes.
You just don't know who's who at that time, because and so I said to myself, is that Johnny Cochran? When I remember when I first, saw it, and I'm thinking, but which one is which?
Yeah.
Anyway, I appreciate that. How long did you practice law?
About 25 years.
Wow. And I love the analogy you just said, and I thought I want to go back to it. You said being a trial attorney it's like being an athlete. And if you don't do it regularly, you lose the muscle, you lose the skill.
Yes.
And so what was it about trial practice that you gravitated to? What was it about it that you enjoyed?
I enjoy performing. Okay.
Okay.
And as a speaker, to me, a good speaker is one who connects with the audience and then moves the audience to a place that he wants them or she wants them to go. And so when you're teaching people any subject, I often feel if the student fails, the teacher didn't do his or her job. And so the idea of connecting is important when you have a case. Now, when you take a case, you can't say, well, I only represent good people, I only represent innocent people. But your obligation is to paint a picture to get their point of view. Like many times people do bad things, but at least if you understand what was in their mind, where they were coming from when they did the bad things, it may give them a whole nother give the jury or the judge another perspective. And so I like that personal thing. When you really get down to it, our whole judicial system is, especially in the criminal case, is to convince 12 people that your guy or your lady is not guilty and beyond a reasonable doubt. And so it's all about their belief. If you can paint a picture, as a trial lawyer, my goal is to always paint a picture. I love to use images when I talk to people. Sometimes folks would, when attorneys talk about the law, half the jurors don't know what they're talking about. But if you can paint the picture of the circumstances, then that gives your client an opportunity to win. If you remember the To Kill a Mockingbird, was that Gregory Peck? Yeah. And the thing that he did was he created an image for the jurors and basically said, the only difference now is that instead of you being there, handling business, there was a black man there. And so that appealed to me as a writer, to paint a picture, to always understand that communication is about creating ideas in another individual's mind or in a group of individuals' minds that they can relate to and that they can understand.
I love that. Paint a picture. I love that. I've used that phrase in the world of marketing for years, and I resonate with that quite a bit. You have, I'm going to jump a little bit all over the place.
Go ahead. I'm with you.
How long? So you've written a number of books, and actually it turns out there's one book that I didn't name in the intro that you also wrote from some time ago. Talk about your journey as an author.
I never grew up wanting to be an author, but I found it, and for our listeners, if you can figure out what you're good at, and very early in life, I realized I was really good at telling stories and writing them down. I had a sense, my mother was a teacher, my aunt was a teacher. My aunt never married. She was more like a mother to me. And she always wanted me to, her thing was complete the idea, complete the thought. She was always irritated. An incomplete thought. And when she would challenge you, she would draw it out. I remember she said education, educare, and it means to draw out. Many people think education is to take in, but educare means to draw out. The knowledge is always there, but to draw it out so that you can be aware of it.
Wow. And
so she would challenge me when I'd say something. She said, well, where does that go? And say it better. And once I realized that was my talent, my skill, I always used it, and one of my early jobs out of college was at Time Magazine. And in the research department, and be able to write up, take a query and write it up very succinctly so that whoever sent the query in could read it quickly, because you're in the news business, so you don't want a whole lot of background. But that was always my gift. And in the, I guess in the 70s, I was in the music business. I had actually, I was married to a singer, and so I was in the music business. Matter of fact, a group called the Ronettes. It was a Phil Spector group, and Elaine was the cousin. But anyway, in the music business, I realized that so many people, there was no guidance, there was no way to go, no handbook. The one book at that time was a book called This Business of Music by Bill Kraslovsky, and even a lawyer had trouble reading it. And so I had a partner, Lucian Farrar. He and I were in the music business together, and we started writing little notes. And then we got an idea, let's write a book. And in those days, you could write 3 chapters in an outline and get an advance.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we did. My agent was Arthur Schwartz, a guy I'd gone to college with. And he and I had done some things earlier. In college, I used to write little review notes for people. I had a whole study system that I developed. But we wrote the 3 chapters, and the fact that we got a check before we'd actually written the book, I don't even know if you can do that now unless you're big time.
You got to be big time today.
Yeah. And so that really got us going. And one of the things we learned was to set a schedule. And so Lou and I was working full time, and I'd come to his house afterwards. He'd fix dinner, and we'd work from about 7 until 11, Monday through Friday. And then Saturday afternoons we work. Saturday we work in the morning until about 1, and then we'd go have dinner. And so that helped us, have a schedule to get it done. Took us about 8 months to write the book. And then we learned another very valuable lesson. The book was called How to Make Money in Music. That didn't start out as the title. Okay. Okay. But as we learn more, and as a writer, the more you write, the more you learn. And as we evolved to the end of the book, it was right around Thanksgiving, and we wanted the second half of that advance for Christmas. And there was about a 2-week turnaround. Okay. And so we had been struggling for almost a month to write this final chapter that captured everything. That thing about my art of completion. We wanted to write a chapter that it was so powerful that if you read the last chapter, you go back and read the whole book.
Oh, okay, right.
And finally, after being very unsuccessful at it, I said to Lou, Lou, the book is finished. He said, what do you mean it's finished? I said, we're the writers. It's finished when we say it's finished.
I love it. It's over when we say it's over.
That's it. So
don't belabor it anymore. It's over.
That's it. Here, put the end. Close this thing up. Put it in the envelope and send it to the publisher.
I love it. Close the loop.
That's it.
Is that what your aunt taught, did you say that earlier? That's kind of the way she was talking about, right?
Yeah.
Finish your
that's
thought.
it. Finish the thought.
Finish the thought.
Yeah.
I love it. So you've gone on now to write, what is it, 4 books total?
Yes.
We're really going to spend some time with Universal Laws of Success, 12 Universal Laws of Success. I'll come back to that in a minute because that's a whole theme that I want to talk to you about. But I mean, so walk us attorney to author to mentor, you have inspired, coached, or trained something of in a million people or something like that. I read through your bio.
Oh yeah.
We have about that.
Well, when you follow your dream, I think many times we run away from our dreams. We get so involved with the alligators that we can't see what it would be like if the swamp were drained. Wow. Okay. And so once you decide to do something, you go ahead and work and you follow your mind. The 12 Universal Laws of Success came about from a meditation. I was practicing law. My office was in the Teresa Hotel in New York. And in my meditation, I really wanted to teach. I love teaching. And, I guess trying a case is like teaching a jury, getting your point across. Mm-hmm. And that morning in my meditation, I saw myself standing before a class teaching. I go out in the morning for a jog. I used to jog through City College campus. I go out, I run into Dr. Maddie Cook. She was the president of Malcolm King College in New York City, which was located in the same building where my law office was. I think they had 2 or 3 floors. So I run up to her, Dr. Cook. She says, "Oh, hi, you're Attorney Harris." I said, I want to teach a course. She said, "Beautiful." I said, "Yeah, teach a course on success." She said, "Well, what's the name of the course?" And, the scripture says, "Open your mouth and I'll put the words there." And the words came out, achievement motivation. She said, "I love it. Can you be in my office today?" I had no idea. I was shocked. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'll be there." 4 o'clock, I went there. She said, I love the idea. She said, can you start Monday? She told me what they would pay me. And, one thing about opportunity, if you're not prepared for it, but if it's in your spirit, God, the creator, the universe will give you what you need. So from Friday morning, where I had absolutely no idea of an outline, all I had was a thought in my head from a vision, to Friday afternoon, where I'm committed to start a class on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah. So that just opened the door to writing, because I prepared notes for that class. I realized that many of the students had been out into the world, were coming back after having families, had been in the military. So it weren't your traditional, 18-year-olds coming wide-eyed and bushy-tailed out of high school. There were people that had some life under their belts. And so they had to be approached in a different way. And in preparing for that course, it was necessary to make an outline and to create my own notes. Yeah. Because many of the great books that impacted me, How to Make Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, the Power of Thinking Big, it just didn't fit that class format. And so that started me on the journey. And from there, it just grew, from the notes to a book called Thoughts for Success, to a newspaper column. And so when your dream, life is a lot like being in a gold mine. And whenever you have a dream, when you find something that you love, it's like finding a vein of gold. And if you follow that vein, eventually you'll come to the mother lode, or the money lode. Right. Yeah, you'll come to the money lode. And so once you find something that you love and you follow it, you'll get better at it. You'll learn more about it. You'll be inspired. And so our whole goal from that point on was to give other people the chance to have that same experience, to help put them in an environment. That's why the meditation was so important, to disconnect from whatever you came from, to get centered, to be in this environment now, so that I can get you to a level where what's already in you. I think Cuyahoga Brown said, I meditated on a dewdrop and I understood the entire ocean. Wow. And so the fact that we're alive and created by God, we already have everything we need to get everything we want, but it has to be drawn out of us. And so that's always been my approach in the success paradigm, in the life paradigm.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So beautiful what you just said. A couple things just sparked in my mind about, I want to go quickly to this idea. When did you first begin your practice of meditation?
In the 70s, it's something I was always drawn to that.
I see.
I was always drawn to it. So I was one of those perennial, almost habitual seminar attenders.
Okay. Right.
And I met a young man, Gabriel Luck, and he was the only brother I'd ever known that had gone to India, pursuing. And we had a chance to really, we'd set up a camp. We had an idea, and we were taking inner city kids to the mountains of New York. And Gabriel taught all of us meditation. And when I saw him take kids out of Harlem and Bed-Stuy, the first nights they got there, they couldn't sleep because they were so accustomed to sirens and gunshots that in the quiet, they couldn't sleep. And he taught them how to sleep through meditation. So that was when I was first introduced to it, because someone that I knew, I'd seen, you see stuff about it. But when you see someone able to quiet a room, able to help these children. And these are kids, if somebody told them back in Harlem or Bed-Stuy, they're going to be doing meditation on the side of a mountain, they'd say, you must be crazy. These are some bad kids. You'd be lucky they don't steal the mountain.
Oh, that's too much. Let me ask you this. So your perspective, and we'll move on from meditation, but what's the number one benefit that you get from meditation that has kept you consistently practicing for 50-ish years?
Hmm. Well, I'll tell you, the number one benefit for me is health. That I believe that meditation helps me reduce stress, helps me approach life. I do all kinds. Whenever a challenge confronts me, the first thing I do is go and meditate on it. Now, it may be a situation where I can't sit and get in a room and all that, but even I've developed the technique to be able to take a deep breath. Breath is prana in the Indian philosophy, prana, which is energy. And so no matter what situation, to recognize through meditation, be it a short meditation or a long meditation, that I can control my state of mind and set myself up in a better position to make good decisions. Like whatever this is, and bring yourself to a calm state and then look at the situation. And so meditation gave me that power to change my state of mind. But my health, I believe that we can relate to our bodies in every regard. And in doing that, you now become more aware of what you eat, what you take in. I drink 100 ounces of water a day. I drink 32 ounces in the morning before I eat anything else, because it helps flush out my body. And so the meditation gave me the chance to center myself, to be very objective about the things that are necessary to maintain my health. There's an Arabian proverb that says, he who has health has hope. He who has hope has everything. And so health is critical, and meditation has been my source of good health and maintaining myself at a high level of effectiveness.
I appreciate you sharing that. Wow. I love it. I love it. You have, for the last, for I don't know how many years, but a good chunk of years, you've been leading this discussion around success. I have a couple questions here. I want to dive into your book a little bit, talk about some of the tools and resources that you provide, and this prolific content creation model that you have that is just make it. I got to step my game up when I look around the internet and find you everywhere. I'm like, good Lord, I need to pick my game up. But tell the audience from your perspective, what does success mean to you?
Success in the first instance means clarity. That if you don't see, in the Bible it talks about the promised land, that if you don't see something that you want to be, then it's a challenge to work to get there. A GPS requires two coordinates. It requires a destination and it requires a location. And so success in the first instance is to see your promised land, to see yourself beyond your limitations, beyond your condition. The prodigal son, when he had spent all his money and he's feeding somebody else's pigs, he didn't even have pigs of his own, okay, waiting for the pigs to finish eating so he could get what was left. He looked at his condition and he said, I will arise and go to my father, because in my father's house, his servants have enough to eat and more. And so success in the first instance is to see your promised land, to see yourself above your condition. Sometimes there's what we call success to and success from. Sometimes success may mean just getting out of a bad neighborhood. It may mean getting away from bad people, from friends who, if you hang around with them, they'll take you down. We often say, when people come out of prison, don't go back to the same playground with the same playmates and the same playthings. So success can be a journey from, let me just get out of here.
Right.
Let me leave all these bad people. Let me leave this environment. Sandra talks about, she was raised on a farm, and she said when they were out there picking tobacco, it was so hot that you dug a hole and put your feet in the hole in the ground, because that's how hot the ground was. Okay? to dig down to get coolness. But in that moment, she made up her mind she was not going to pick tobacco and string tobacco. She said, that's when I decided I'm going to get me an education. Okay. And so in the first instance is having something you want to go to. Second, to realize that it's an evolutionary process, that you don't get there right away, that the moment you see it, you can be it, but it's a gradual process. And so to look at it as a step-by-step journey, when we can set ourselves up for success and say, well, I want to get to the promised land. I want to be financially secure. I want to own real estate. And I want to do it by next Wednesday. Okay. And you know, because my bills are due next Friday. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how we think.
Hey, man.
That's how we think. Truth be told, I mean,
I tell you.
No matter how far we the journey, we all want it now o'clock.
Well, you know, a friend of mine was, we were involved in, he was a part of this organization, and it was clear that the organization was doing the wrong things. I mean, they were just doing terrible things. And I said to him, well, man, you're the vice president. Why don't you say something? You see what's going on? He said, Herb, I got 3 kids in college. He said, I can't miss a paycheck. He says, as a matter of fact, I'm high-level broke. I said, what do you mean high-level broke? He says, can you imagine I make 6 figures and spend 7? Okay, yeah. So that idea there of setting yourself up for failure, so to recognize it as a gradual process. And third, that there's never a mistake, that you either learn or you win. And so on your success journey, when you try stuff and it doesn't work, it fails, you then say, hey, well, I learned what does not work. Okay. Yeah. And so to recognize there's only growth. And then finally, that you got to keep going. It's not how many times you stumble down, it's the number of times you pick yourself up off the ground and keep moving on to meet your goals. So I think those little keys there, once you recognize that, you keep going and growing, there are no mistakes, see your promised land, have your vision, that all you got to do is keep doing it, and it will come.
You've got a lot of resources available in your repertoire, from the free content that you have on Instagram to Facebook to your podcast to, and I want to talk a little bit about this, your success toolbox on your website. There's something there for everyone, whether they are looking for the free content, and not to mention your podcast, you bring on guests and help them share their stories through your process and your platform. But if someone wanted to go into that success toolbox, what would they expect to find? And you can couple that with the book, because I know that it's kind of tied together to the book, right? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, the thought is you want to have everything you need to get everything you want. So, for example, if you were going to have your car fixed, wait 1 minute. If you were going to fix your car, you want to have all the tools necessary to fix it. And so if you want to transform your life, you want to have all the tools. And so we wanted to give people, there's a digital version of the book so that they can read it on their computers, on their phones. And then there's the audio, over 6 hours of recorded information. And that's recognizing that everybody learns differently. You know, right now, someone said about 1/3 of all the publications now people are reading digitally and not books. Like, you see pictures now, you don't see libraries as much as you used to see. And so the audio book is there to help feed your mind. And then we have the core of the toolbox is something called the New You Home Study Course. And the idea is that wherever you are, and that's a 4 parts. Number 1, to assess where you are. Because if you're not happy, if you're not fulfilled, if you don't have the things you want to do, if you're not your life is not going the way you want it to go, then assess where you are, be honest with yourself. And we give you techniques like the Ben Franklin technique to look at your wins and lessons. And if you have more wins than lessons, then maybe keep doing what you're doing. But if you got more lessons than wins, then you need to make a checkup from the neck up. You need to make stop and change up.
Come on, let's go.
Okay, so everything, I think, and that's the key right there. Until you can assess where you are, and the way that home study course is put together, there's a workbook. Because I'm a firm believer, the Habakkuk, one of the shortest books of the Bible, says, write the vision, make it plain.
Make it plain.
And so the workbook can be filled in online, or you can print it out and have on sheets. So we wanted to make it for the old people who need to print it out and write with a pen, and for the young people who want to do it on their phones. And so the workbook helps them crystallize the information. So assess, address what are the changes you need to make in your life. And that's where most of us are right now. If I'm not happy, what do I need to do to be happy? First, I need to understand what happiness means to me.
Right.
So once you address those changes now, then you're able to set new goals. So now once you've eliminated the fact that you've gotten rid of the alligators and drained the swamp, now you can say, well, I see a development here. I can go build 300 luxury houses and 300 affordable houses. I can help everybody. Okay. And then the fourth part of that is action plan, because until the difference between a goal and a wish is a timeline. So a wish is a goal with no timeline. I wish I get me a Mercedes. But then you say, hey, I'm going to get me a Mercedes next year. It becomes a goal. And so once we help people set the new goals and then lay out an action plan, and we're talking like daily stuff, those habits that change you, write out your list the night before, assign a time element, schedule when stuff must be done, monitor your progress. And so with that home study, that core there gives you the tools now. And we did it in a home study format, so you can do it on your own time. Some people, I've seen people get it, man, they're like, go in the kitchen or go in the backyard for 2 or 3 days, and they come back transformed. Other people have to work at it,
Right.
And then the supplement that we have audios such as the law of command, because how you speak about yourself programs yourself for the reality that you will create. So if you talk about yourself as a loser, I'm busted, disgusted, and can't be trusted. Now, what's that going to create?
Right.
So the law of command. We have another audio there called Wealth Building in Trying Times. Like we're coming out of a pandemic. Say, man, talking about wealth, I'm just trying to survive. Well, how do you create a mindset to create wealth? And I don't just mean financial wealth, but wealth in a totality sense.
Right.
And then we have the 12 affirmations to live by, a poster. So a list of affirmations that you can repeat each day, a little exercise for affirmation exercise. And so the goal is, plus there's a 12 Universal Laws of Success, a recorded seminar that we did. Can you imagine a seminar with myself, Dennis, what's my friend Dennis who wrote Dennis Kimbrough. Yes, I didn't put doctor in front of it. That Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. He's Dennis, my buddy. Ken Brown, a motivation speaker out of Detroit, and with Tawana Williams. Tawana Williams, born with no arms. Okay, if you can imagine a weekend of that. And so my portion was a piece on the 12 Universal Laws of Success, so that's recorded. So the idea is all that stuff is in one place, and so you don't have to run around. If you go top to bottom, there's even an audio on that how to study, to prepare you. We're not just going to put you out here, let's say, transform your life. Most of us have never learned how to study. And so to follow the study process. And the goal is now you have everything you need. All you have to do is make a decision. And decision first is that I want to change. Decision 2 is to get the course. Go to our website, herbertharris.com. And then decision 3 is to put it into action. And if you do that, we're going to transform millions of people. And they're going to do it on their time. And then they can plug in. When they get the course, they can plug into our Success Mentorship Network. So when we do our classes on every morning, Saturday at 8 a.m., we do a Success Mentorship class. And after we do the live broadcast, we have a discussion. And man, the people are teaching themselves. I start taking notes.
Yeah, you
because
that now.
Yeah, that mastermind, when you get people together who have a dream and want to do something, want to be something, want to have something, they'll be able to think things they didn't even know they knew.
Yeah. Am I correct? Did I see that you guys are over 200 of those Success Saturdays?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Like I think we're at number 270.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And thank you for the background on all of that. I mean, the 4 keys that you talked about and in terms of what they mean to you. And I think that's going to transfer to those listening. A lot of times we stack those L's and we wonder why we're not winning, but we keep repeating the same things. And you talked about self-talk, and it's such a good thing. I want to make sure people know that they should get the book, The 12 Universal Laws of Success. If you check it out on Amazon, check it out. Can they get it from your website?
You can get it from our website. And we have, herbertharris.com, and you can go there. And we also, it's very interesting, Darrell, people want autographed books. And so we have a simple website, 12uls.com. Someone said, look, I don't want to do the Amazon. I want the book right now, and I want you to write something in it. Oh. And so the number 12uls.com. So everything is available.
Whatever you do, just understand this book has 5-star reviews all the way across the board. So I have a copy of it sitting just here on my screen to my left. Dr. Harris blessed me with a copy, and because I'm a lifelong learner, it's always good to run across someone who believes in a constant. My company is called Can-I 365. Can-I is constant and never-ending improvement. And people ask me, what is it about your journey? And I'm like, it's just because I'm always willing to keep learning. I don't pretend I know everything. I don't pretend I know anything half the time. Now I know quite a bit, but it keeps me going by not pretending I know everything. And so I got to ask you, what drives you? Like when you talked about it earlier, like if you face a challenge, you initially think to go into a meditation, whether that's a quick pause or a deep meditation. But what keeps you going at this rate? Because you produce content prolifically online, free for the public, free for the world. You host a podcast. You've written 4 books. Another book is coming out soon. Did I hear that?
The Life Lessons, yes.
The Life Lessons book is coming out. What keeps Dr. Harris going so strong and powerfully day after day?
Darrell, I believe that I'm a conduit. And a conduit is one through which knowledge, thoughts, emotions, habits, relationships is a person that vibrations can pass through that can impact the world. God has blessed me with a good mind and with good skills. And my thought is, God did not give me what I have for no reason. He didn't say, Herbert, you need another car. You need a bigger house. But God says, share this message, touch as many people as possible to help them realize who they are. And so that really drives me, man. When I do the interviews, when I talk with people come to Wilmington. I have folks that periodically, folks just have to come. They'll come to Wilmington and spend a day, and we'll go sit by the river and have lunch and talk. And when I see people fly, when I see people who inside they were eagles, but all their lives they've been told they were turkeys. And when I can help them fly, and that drives me, man. I want to do it more and more. I want to do it in different levels. My assistant was talking about, when people come to sit and spend a day or a few hours with me, she says, you need to move that on up to another scale. You need to plug people in here and do this and do your seminars again. Because I go through cycles. There's cycles where I'm like just radiating and just motivated to teach, and folks are setting up, and I'll be on a speaking cycle and speaking here and traveling there and speaking here. And then there's cycles in which I draw back and wait for instructions. You know, when you find yourself repeating certain things, you know, in life, and when stuff happens over and over again, that tells you that you've been down that road one time too many. Wow. And it's time to step up your game to another level. We go through a series of mountains.
Yes.
And once you come out of the forest, and the forest of mediocrity, the forest of Me Tooism, and when you're in that forest, you can't see nothing but trees. But if your consciousness can take you, if somebody can tell you that down the road of peace, turn right, there's a hill. And when you go up that hill, you find that that hill leads to a mountain. And then you go up that mountain now, and you get to the top of that mountain, and lo and behold, there's another mountain. Because we're always striving for the oneness and the perfection. You know? And the higher you go, the simpler it gets. You know, because you become so harmonically in tune that your powers now, what you used to have to write on the board and tell people over and over, your vibration powers are so different that just coming into your space and spending an hour, they got it. They'll walk away and they'll go back to their hotel. They go like, Doc, I got it. After that, we came to me. And so that just keeps me going. Every time I get to another mountain, like I got books in my head right now that I gotta go on and write, you know, because that God is, if I don't do it, you know, God will be mad.
You're looking for that good, are you looking for that good and faithful servant
Yes.
dialogue when you get yes sir.
Yes.
Just it's such a great way to end this conversation for today, and I hope Dr. Harris will be able to get you back in the future. I think there's so much richness to this discussion. We barely uncovered a ton, but I'm gonna say that there's such a energy about you, a warmth, a desire, a passion that I appreciate so much. And I really do sit and think to myself, there are times when I wonder at the same time, why do I keep doing certain things? And it's because you feel obligated to the gift, to the blessing. The Bible also says we are blessed to be a blessing.
Yes.
And so sometimes it's not good enough that we've made it or we've achieved things. And like you said, I put my head down. If those who weren't watching on YouTube or wherever the video is posted, when he said you get to the mountain after coming through the forest, and then you realize there's yet another mountain. That to me has been as profound a truth as I've ever known in my 53 years of quote unquote chasing achievement and success and leadership and trying to inspire others along the way. And the draining idea of that is that you could look at that other mountain and say, gosh, dog it. I thought I was done. But
yes.
No, that's not how it works.
Yes.
But your point was it gets easier from that point on because now you've built a muscle.
Yes.
And it's not an obligation to climb the next mountain. It's a privilege because
yes.
you know that there are additional folks, there's additional learnings, there's additional blessings, there's additional people to inspire. I may be putting words in your mouth by listening and trying to recant what I was thinking about when you were saying that, but it was so profound.
But you know, Darrell, sometimes they often say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But when the teacher is ready, the student appears. And so as you proceed along the journey up the various mountains of consciousness, there's another level of people waiting for you to be their teacher.
Come on. Right, what day is today? Today's Thursday. We record. It sounds like a Sunday. I don't know. It sounds like we preach up here on a Sunday. Can I get an amen on a Thursday? What we talking about up in here? squeeze. Every time you go up, there's somebody waiting for you.
That's it.
I
That's
love
it.
it. I love it. Ah, that's a great metaphor. A great way to paint the picture
Yes.
of what's going to happen when you decide to climb. Oh my
Yes.
geez. Dr. Harris, my goodness. Listen, tell everybody once again where to find you. And then I want to let people know that we're going to link up everywhere you can find them. But where would you want people to connect with you first and foremost?
Well, I tell you, our website, we have on there their videos and some of our products and programs, herbertharris.com. And our YouTube channel, where we have a lot of our things there. Our YouTube channel is, of course, YouTube, etc. Herbert Harris, Millionaire Maker. Okay.
Yep, I saw that.
And
Yeah, we'll get that.
yeah, and then on Instagram, Dr. Herbert Harris, Dr. Herbert Harris, Dr. Herbert Harris. So all of those are ways to reach us. And through our website, though, you can fill in the contact information and get on our distribution list and learn about our success mentorship classes and all the other things we do.
I love it. I love it. I got to ask you the last question, and we'll bring it to a close for today's talk, and we'll have you back in the future. If for some reason today happened to be the last day on this beautiful planet, with all of the great things you've done, with all of the things that are yet undone, what would you want everyone to remember you for?
As the man who showed up. Rain, sleet, snow, showed up. And when you turn the corner of existence, I'll be there.
Nothing left to say. Dr. Herbert Harris, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Connect with you. We connected a few months ago through LinkedIn. I'm so glad that we took the time to get to know each other. I'm looking forward to having you back on the show in the future. And I wish you nothing but continued success in your continued journey up the mountains and meeting new people and helping them climb.
Well, I'd like to close with that Mary Pickford variation on her quote. She said, "You can never go back and create a new beginning, but you can start where you are and create a new ending." And that's where I'm at right now. For those who want to create a new ending, a new version of themselves, I am there. I
love it. Well, there you have it, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the MindShift Podcast. If we have never had a chance to meet, my name is Darrell Evans, and I obviously am your host. And I want to just thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend it with us today. You could have been anywhere in the world listening to anything, and there's a lot of great content out here on the world today. We believe here at the MindShift Podcast that you're just one shift away from the breakthrough you're looking for. And I hope that you would have gotten at least a half, but I'm sure you got 4 or 5 major shifts that you could take away from this episode to apply to your life. We invite you to subscribe, follow the show wherever you're listening to this episode. We would appreciate it if you would share it with a friend, someone who you might know is looking for some game-changing breakthrough ideas around the topic of success and achievement. We also believe that there are 4 steps to shifting anything in your life. The first step is make peace with the facts. You can't change necessarily where you're at, but you can decide to make peace with it. Dr. Herbert Harris talked about that with his practice of meditation. I believe in the same thing. Sometimes we don't like what happened, but what happened, happened. Let's decide what we're going to do. Step 2, let's make a new plan. Let's make a new decision about what we're going to do going forward. Step 3, let's make a plan. Sometimes you need a coach. You need a mentor like Dr. Harris. You might need someone who's outside of your own consciousness to look back on something you can't see because you're in the middle of it, in the middle of the frame. And step 4, you got to make it happen. Dr. Harris said it earlier. You can't have it overnight. It isn't going to necessarily change because you need it by next Friday. We have to do the work. We have to set a plan. We have to set the goal. And then we have to actually do the work. And so I'm going to leave that with you today. That is called the MindShift Method. We'll see you back on another episode of the MindShift Podcast. Once again, Dr. Harris, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, my friend. And God bless you and continuing the great work you're doing, helping people find that one thought, that one shift that can make all the difference.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate you. Hey, it's Darrell Evans. Hit the subscribe button so you can become a part of the MindShift community. We'll help you shift your mind so you can shift your results.